Shalom, fellow kids. My name is Cody Baynard, and today I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on the latest record from Riverside titled Identity or ID.Entity. I guess it's meant to be ambiguous that way. Whatever, I'm going to call it Identity. I absolutely love Riverside. They have been one of my favorite bands in modern progressive rock and sometimes metal for a few years now. I saw them live in concert when they came to Toronto, and in fact, my profile picture is actually a picture of me having a good time at that concert. I think their first two albums are phenomenal. I love the high energy of Neo-prog High Definition, and I love the very vulnerable and nostalgic and hopeful Love, Fear, and the Time Machine. However, in early 2016, their guitarist Pieter tragically passed away. The band very bravely decided to continue as a trio, and in 2018, they released Wasteland, which was a record that I didn't find myself loving quite as much as I was hoping, but regardless, it still had a lot of the heart and the honesty that I would typically want from a Riverside record. And obviously, naturally, I was very much looking forward to this now brand new record from them. And while I do like it overall, I am feeling somewhat underwhelmed by it. The record starts on a very strong note, however, with Friend or Foe, which opens the album with these very glamorous, bright synths that fill the atmosphere before the song reveals itself to be a somewhat 80s synthwave infused progressive rock number that almost feels like a proggier version of something that I would expect from, I guess, New Order, for example. Marius Duda, who is the band's vocalist, as always, has a very tender singing voice and demonstrates some very beautiful melodies on top of these very lavish instrumentals, making for a pretty enjoyable opening number that gets me very interested in what the rest of the album has to offer. Following that, we have the song Landmine Blast, which is driven by this very groovy, kind of Tool-esque bass line that also reminds me of something that I would hear from a much earlier record from them, like Anno Domini High Definition or Second Life Syndrome. And it is also a really solid number. Marius, as a singer, has a really good way of tastefully using his voice as an instrument in itself to add to the instrumentals and add to the musical layering in a very effective and interesting way. While it is a shorter and more straightforward number, this song is very high quality within its very short span of time. Then we get to Big Tech Brother, which admittingly starts on a very strange note with this very purposefully threatening automated voice message that seems to be cynically making fun of how accepting terms and conditions can be used to manipulate users against their will. And I get that the song is trying to be, meta and clever and cynical, but there's something about very clearly threatening automated voice messages in a song that I find very silly. It was also one of the worst things about that latest Motionless in White album, for example. However, following that, the rest of the track is really, really cool. The song then introduces these very energetic and bombastic kind of trumpet-like synthesizers and riffs that give the first leg of the track somewhat of a big band energy that I find pretty exciting. When the song gets to its main riffs, the guitar work as well as the vocal melodies, like the previous two tracks so far, are very smart and tasteful. And I really like the very atmospheric layering during the final minute or so of this track, which gives its outro a kind of somber feel. During the next four tracks, I will say the album does get quite a bit less strong. Songs like Post-Truth and I'm Done With You, for example, although still very solid and enjoyable songs, do admittingly make me feel like I'm listening to a somewhat watered down version of what I would expect from the aforementioned Second Life Syndrome and Anno Domini High Definition, which I've already referenced a couple of times already in this review. Sorry, I'm a fan of those two albums, okay? I do think the album's weakest song is also, unfortunately, its longest. and that is The Place Where I Belong. The fact that the biggest stretch of time on this album is the one that feels the most underwhelming, I think really holds the album's quality back for me quite a bit. The track does start on a very nice note with these very ambient sounding synthesizer and acoustic passages, which creates this very nice airy atmosphere. The song then decides to build some cinematic tension before we get into these kind of all right 70s progressive rock style riffs. While I have grown to appreciate the attitude behind the riffs as well as the phrasing of Marius's vocals, I still can't help but feel like this whole section is kind of lacking in the charm and the energy that I would want, and also can be found from other bands from like the 70s that utilize similar types of sounds and riffs, such as Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And hell, even Riverside themselves have made better similar tracks to this section, such as Celebrity Touch and Under the Pillow. And on top of these relatively unexciting and unenergetic instrumentals, some of the lyrics as well as the delivery of said lyrics can, in my opinion, get pretty bad, with probably the silliest example of what I mean being another pop philosopher tells you how you should live by starting from getting to know yourself. Wow, BFD indeed. I'm sorry, no matter how many times I hear this part, it just makes me cringe. I don't know why. After this, however, the third leg of this piece is comprised of these, very pretty and spacey kind of Pink Floyd like passages that, although very nice, I don't think are quite moving enough for it to feel like a very satisfying and cathartic way to close off this 13-minute odyssey. I do like the album's closing track, Self Aware, quite a bit, however. This track kind of reprises the very high energy and poppy nature of the album's opener, Friend or Foe. This time I'm sensing a little bit of influences, I guess, from Rush or something. And it makes for a pretty fun number. At the very end of the song, we have these very nice and hypnotic layering of synthesizers and melodies. And although I don't find this to be the most conclusive way to end the album, I think it still does a pretty decent job at kind of settling the listener out of the whole experience. Now, even though I do still feel somewhat underwhelmed by this album and do personally prefer the works that they've done with Pieter in the past, I still highly respect and appreciate and commend the band for still making the music that they want to make, and it does still result in a pretty solid effort. As always, the musicianship, the production, all friggin' top notch, and the band, I think, do a really good job at writing some very interesting songs and ideas, as previously discussed. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the new record from Riverside. What did you think of it? I hope you enjoyed it more than I did. If you did, or if you didn't, whatever, please feel free to share and discuss your thoughts on it in the comments section down below, as well as any constructive criticism on my personal review. And so, yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.